She was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, but it would take a storm and a stranger's calloused hands to teach her what real wealth actually meant. Claire Davenport had everything money could buy, except the one thing that would save her life when her world came crashing down on a rain-soaked mountain road. The man who pulled her from the wreckage was everything her father despised, everything her world rejected, but he would become the only truth she'd ever known. When love collides with power, when a billionaire's daughter falls for a small-town mechanic, someone always pays the price. But Claire had no idea that choosing her heart over her heritage would cost them both everything they held dear and force her to make the most devastating choice of her life. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Because this story of forbidden love and impossible choices will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about sacrifice. The storm came out of nowhere, like most terrible things do. Claire Davenport gripped the steering wheel of her silver BMW as rain hammered against the windshield. The wipers couldn't keep up. She squinted through the chaos, trying to make out the winding mountain road ahead. She should have stayed another night at the business retreat. Her assistant Jenny had suggested it when the weather reports started looking bad. But Claire never listened to weather reports. She had a board meeting tomorrow morning, and the Davenport name didn't make excuses. Lightning cracked across the sky, followed by thunder that shook her car. Claire's knuckles went white as she gripped the wheel tighter. The road curved sharply ahead, and she pressed the brake pedal. Nothing happened. The car kept sliding forward on the wet asphalt. Claire pumped the brakes again, her heart hammering. The steering wheel felt loose in her hands, like it wasn't connected to anything anymore. "No, no, no," she whispered. The guardrail rushed toward her. She yanked the wheel hard to the right, but the car spun anyway. Metal scraped against metal as she crashed through the barrier and tumbled down into the ditch below. The world flipped upside down. Glass shattered. Something heavy slammed into her head. Then everything went quiet, except for the hiss of steam and the steady drumming of rain on twisted metal. Claire blinked. Blood trickled down her forehead. She tried to move, but pain shot through her shoulder. The car had landed on its side, and she was hanging sideways in her seatbelt. Her phone. Where was her phone? She felt around with her good arm until her fingers found it on what used to be the passenger side window. The screen was cracked, but it still glowed when she touched it. No signal. Of course. Steam kept rising from under the hood. Was that normal? Claire didn't know anything about cars except how to buy them, but something about the smell made her stomach twist with fear. She tried to open the door, but it was jammed shut. The window was too small to crawl through. She was trapped. "Help!" she called out, but her voice sounded small against the storm. "Somebody help me!" Only thunder answered back. Minutes crawled by, or maybe it was hours. The smell got stronger. Smoke started seeping into the car, making her cough. Claire pulled her jacket over her nose and mouth, but it didn't help much. Her phone battery died. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about newspaper headlines. Heiress dies alone in car crash. Her father would hate that. Edward Davenport cared more about bad publicity than anything else, including his daughter. More smoke. Claire coughed harder. Her eyes burned. She was going to die here, wasn't she? 29 years old, and this was how it ended. Not in a boardroom making deals, not in some hospital bed surrounded by people who loved her. Alone in a ditch because she was too proud to listen to a weather report. Headlights cut through the rain. Claire's heart jumped. She banged on the window with her good hand, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. "Help! I'm down here!" The headlights stopped. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps ran toward her, splashing through puddles. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" A man's voice. deep and calm, even in all this chaos. Yes, I'm stuck. A flashlight beam found her through the cracked windshield. She could see someone crouching outside, but the rain made everything blurry. Are you hurt bad? He asked. My shoulder and my head. There's smoke coming from the engine. I see it. We need to get you out of there right now. Can you move at all? Claire tried to shift in her seat. Pain shot down her arm, but she managed to turn a little. I think so. Good. I'm going to break this window. Turn your face away and cover your eyes. Something heavy struck the passenger window. Glass exploded inward, but it was safety glass, so it crumbled instead of shattering into sharp pieces. Rain poured through the opening. Strong hands reached inside. Give me your good arm. Claire stretched toward him. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, solid and warm. He pulled gently, testing how stuck she was. The seatbelt's holding you. Can you reach the buckle? She felt for it with her hurt arm, biting back a cry. I can't. It's too twisted. Hold on. He disappeared for a moment. When he came back, metal clicked against metal. The seatbelt went loose. Now I'm going to pull you out. This might hurt. Do it. He gripped her under both arms and pulled. Claire bit her lip to keep from screaming as her shoulder protested. Slowly, carefully, he dragged her through the window opening and out into the storm. Rain hit her face like tiny needles, but she didn't care. She was free. Her legs gave out when she tried to stand. The man caught her before she could fall, lifting her easily in his arms. I've got you, he said. You're safe now. Through the rain and darkness, Claire could see his face in the glow of his truck's headlights. Strong jaw, kind eyes, dark skin gleaming wet. He looked about her age, maybe a little older. His work shirt was soaked through, clinging to broad shoulders. My car, she mumbled against his chest. We'll worry about that later. Right now, we need to get you warm and dry. He carried her to his pickup truck and set her gently in the passenger seat. The cab smelled like motor oil and coffee. He cranked the heat up high and grabbed a blanket from behind the seat. What's your name? He asked as he wrapped the blanket around her. Claire Davenport. Something flickered in his eyes when she said her last name, but it was gone too quick to read. I'm Malik Turner. We need to get you checked out by a doctor. Claire shook her head. The roads are too dangerous. The hospital's 20 miles from here. You might have a concussion. That cut on your head needs stitches. It's not that deep. She touched her forehead gingerly. Please, I just want to get somewhere warm and safe. Malik studied her face in the dashboard light. My garage is 5 minutes from here. I've got a first aid kit and a place you can rest until this storm passes. Will that work? Claire nodded. She didn't trust her voice right then. This stranger had just saved her life. He could have kept driving. Most people would have. But he stopped, and now he was offering her shelter. Thank you, she whispered. Malik put the truck in gear. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you see my accommodations. His garage sat at the edge of town, a simple metal building with Turner Auto Repair painted on the side. He parked close to the entrance and helped her inside, flipping on work lights as they went. The space was clean and organized. 3 cars in various stages of repair, toolboxes lined up neat as soldiers, a small office in the back with a couch and a coffee pot. It smelled like honest work. Bathroom's through there if you need it, Malik said, pointing to a door marked private. There's a cot in the office where you can lie down. He disappeared into a back room and returned with towels and dry clothes, a flannel shirt and sweatpants that would swallow her whole. These belong to my friend Caleb. He's about your size, more or less. Claire took the clothes gratefully. I don't know how to thank you for this. You don't need to thank me. Anybody would have done the same thing. But Claire knew that wasn't true. She'd grown up around people who would have called their lawyers before stopping to help a stranger. Money changed people. It made them careful, suspicious, cold. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Malik nodded. "Why did you stop? Most people would have just kept driving in a storm like this." He was quiet for a long moment, cleaning his hands with a shop rag. "My little brother died in a car accident 3 years ago. Someone might have been able to help him if they'd stopped. But nobody did. They just drove past." Claire's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Me too." Malik tossed the rag into a bin. "Go get changed. I'll make some coffee." The bathroom was small, but spotless. Claire stripped out of her wet dress and looked at herself in the mirror. The cut on her forehead wasn't as bad as it felt. Her shoulder was already turning purple where the seatbelt had dug in. She'd be sore for weeks. Caleb's clothes hung on her like a tent, but they were warm and dry. She rolled up the sleeves and pants legs as best she could. When she came out, Malik had coffee waiting and was cleaning the cut on her head with gentle hands. His fingers were calloused from years of mechanical work, but his touch was soft. "You're lucky," he said, applying a bandage. "Half an inch lower, and this would have needed stitches." "I don't feel very lucky right now." "You're alive. In my book, that makes you the luckiest person in the county tonight." Claire sank down on the office couch with her coffee. The storm was still raging outside, but in here it felt safe. Peaceful, even. "What do you do, Claire Davenport?" Malik asked, settling into the chair across from her. She hesitated. The Davenport name meant something in this part of New York. Her family owned half the commercial real estate in a 50-mile radius. When people heard that name, they either wanted something from her or they started treating her different. "Business," she said finally. "What about you? Besides saving people from car wrecks, I mean." Malik smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "I fix things that are broken. Cars, mostly. Sometimes trucks. Caleb says I could make more money in the city, but I like it here. People are real." Claire knew what he meant by that. She'd lived in Manhattan for 5 years after college, working for her father's company. Everything there was performance. Every conversation was calculated. Even friendships came with price tags. "How long have you been in business?" she asked. 4 years. Started it after I got out of the army. Used my savings to buy this place." "You were a soldier?" "Mechanic, actually. Same job, different uniform." Malik's eyes grew distant. "Did 2 tours in Afghanistan. Fixed everything from Humvees to helicopters. That must have been hard. Had its moments, but it taught me something important." "What's that?" Malik looked at her directly. "That the most important thing you can do is show up when somebody needs help. Everything else is just details." Claire felt something shift in her chest. When was the last time someone had talked to her like this? Not as an heiress or a business contact or a networking opportunity. Just as a person. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, but it sounded farther away now. "Storm's moving on," Malik said. "You should try to get some rest. I'll drive you wherever you need to go in the morning." Claire nodded, but she wasn't tired. Her mind kept spinning. In a few hours, she'd go back to her regular life. Board meetings and business lunches and people who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. She'd probably never see this place again. Never see him again. The thought made her sadder than it should have. "Malik?" He looked up from where he was putting away the first aid kit. "Thank you. Really. You saved my life tonight." "Just glad I was in the right place at the right time." But Claire had a feeling it was more than that. Some people were just born to help others. It was written into their bones, part of who they were. Malik Turner was one of those people. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and closed her eyes. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt truly safe. Outside, the last of the storm clouds rolled away, leaving stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black silk. Claire woke to sunlight streaming through the office window and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The crash. The rescue. The kind stranger who'd taken her in. Malik was already up, moving around the garage. She could hear him talking to someone in low voices. She checked her appearance in the bathroom mirror. The borrowed clothes were wrinkled but clean. Her hair was a disaster, but there wasn't much she could do about that. When she emerged from the office, Malik was standing with a young woman Claire didn't recognize. Blonde hair, worried expression, expensive purse clutched in manicured hands. "Claire!" The woman rushed over. "Oh my God, I've been looking everywhere for you. Are you hurt? Should we call an ambulance?" "Jenny?" Claire blinked in confusion. "How did you find me?" "I tracked your phone's last location. When you didn't answer this morning, I drove up here to look for you." Jenny's eyes swept over Claire's borrowed clothes and bandaged forehead. "What happened?" "Car accident. This is Malik Turner. He saved my life." Jenny turned to study Malik with sharp eyes. Claire could see her assistant taking inventory. His work clothes, his modest garage, the careful way he kept his distance now that Claire's real life had arrived. "Thank you so much for helping her," Jenny said, but her tone was polite and distant. Professional. "Just did what anyone would do," Malik replied. But Claire caught the way his shoulders had tensed up. The easy warmth from last night was gone, replaced by something cooler. More careful. "I should get you to a hospital," Jenny continued. "Have you checked for properly? Head injuries can be serious." "I'm fine, Jenny. Mr. Turner took good care of me." Jenny's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face went pale. "Claire, we need to go. Now." "What's wrong?" "Your father's been calling all morning. He knows about the accident. He's not happy." Claire's stomach dropped. Edward Davenport didn't do worry. He did damage control. "How does he know?" "Someone posted about it online. There's a picture." Jenny showed her the phone screen. A blurry photo taken through the garage window. Claire, wrapped in a blanket, Malik's hand on her forehead as he cleaned her cut. The headline read, "Heiress spotted at local garage, secret romance." Claire's cheeks burned. "That's ridiculous. He was giving me first aid." "I know that. You know that. But the internet doesn't care about facts." Malik had gone very still. Claire saw him reading the headline over Jenny's shoulder, his jaw tightening. "I should go," Claire said quietly. She gathered her wet dress and heels from the bathroom. When she came back out, Malik was wiping down tools that were already clean. "Thank you again," she said. "For everything?" He nodded, but didn't look up. "Glad you're okay." Claire wanted to say more. Wanted to ask if she could see him again, maybe take him to dinner as a proper thank you. But Jenny was already heading for the door, and the moment was slipping away. "Mr. Turner?" she called as they reached the exit. He finally met her eyes. "Yeah? If you ever need anything, business referrals, whatever, here's my card." She set her business card on his workbench. Malik glanced at it, but didn't pick it up. "Take care, Ms. Davenport." The formal address stung worse than her injuries. Last night, she'd been Claire, a person who needed help. Now she was Ms. Davenport again, the heiress from the newspaper. The distance between them felt like miles. Jenny was already starting her car when Claire climbed into the passenger seat. As they pulled away, Claire looked back through the rear window. Malik was standing in the doorway of his garage, watching them leave. Something important had just ended, and she didn't know how to get it back. "Claire?" Jenny's voice was gentle. "We need to talk about damage control. This photo is already being shared on social media. Your father wants to see you as soon as we get back." But Claire wasn't listening. She was thinking about coffee that tasted like more than caffeine, about gentle hands and honest work, about the way someone could save your life without expecting anything in return. The city grew larger ahead of them, all glass and concrete and carefully planned spaces. Behind them, Malik's garage got smaller in the distance until it disappeared entirely. Claire pressed her face to the window and wondered if she was driving toward her real life or away from it. 3 days passed before Claire could stop thinking about coffee that tasted like kindness and hands that knew how to fix broken things. She sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor of the Davenport building, staring out at Manhattan's skyline. The city sprawled below her like a circuit board, all sharp angles and blinking lights. Everything looked small from up here. Manageable. Safe. Her phone buzzed with another text from her father. "Board meeting in 20 minutes. Don't be late." Edward Davenport had been watching her like a hawk since the garage incident. That's what he called it now. Not the night someone saved Claire's life, but the garage incident, like it, was some embarrassing mistake that needed to be managed. The newspaper clipping was still folded in her desk drawer. She'd read it so many times the paper was starting to wear thin. "Heiress spotted at local garage, secret romance?" The picture showed Malik's gentle touch as he cleaned her cut, but the headline made it sound dirty. Scandalous. Jenny knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "Your father's looking for you." "I know." Claire closed the drawer and stood up. "Jenny, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What did you think of him? Malik, I mean." Jenny paused, choosing her words carefully. "He seemed genuine, like he really cared about helping you." But he's not from our world, Claire. You know that, right?" Our world. Claire hated that phrase, as if money built walls that couldn't be crossed, as if kindness and decency were luxuries only the wealthy could afford. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," Claire said. The boardroom was full of men in expensive suits discussing quarterly profits when Claire arrived. Her father sat at the head of the long table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression unreadable. Claire. Feeling better, I hope?" "Much better, thank you." "Good. I trust this little adventure has reminded you why we have drivers, and why we don't go wandering around in questionable neighborhoods." Heat rose in Claire's cheeks. "It wasn't a questionable neighborhood, Dad, and the man who helped me was nothing but respectful." "I'm sure he was. Nevertheless, I think it's best if we put this incident behind us. No more surprise visits to auto shops." It wasn't a suggestion. Edward Davenport didn't make suggestions. He made decisions, and everyone else followed them. "Of course," Claire said, but her fingers were already reaching for her phone. That afternoon, she found herself driving north out of the city. She told herself it was just to thank Malik properly, to return his friend's clothes that she'd borrowed. But her heart was beating too fast for such simple explanations. The mountains looked different in daylight, gentler somehow. The road where she'd crashed had been repaired, new guardrails installed. It was like it never happened. Turner Auto Repair sat exactly where she remembered it, but everything felt different now. Smaller maybe, or less magical. Reality had a way of shrinking miracles down to manageable size. Claire parked her BMW next to a rusty pickup truck and took a deep breath. Through the open bay doors, she could see Malik working under the hood of a school bus. His movements were confident and precise, like a surgeon performing an operation he'd done 1,000 times before. A black man in coveralls emerged from behind the bus. He was shorter than Malik, with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. "Can I help you, miss?" "I'm looking for Malik Turner." The man's expression shifted when he recognized her. "You're the one from the newspaper." "I'm Claire Davenport. Malik helped me the other night." "Caleb Wright." He wiped his hands on a rag before offering one to shake. "Malik mentioned you might stop by." "He did?" "Said you were the polite type, the kind who'd want to say thank you proper." Malik appeared from behind the bus, wiping his hands on a shop towel. He looked surprised to see her, but not unpleasantly so. "Ms. Davenport, everything all right?" There it was again, Ms. Davenport, the formal distance that hadn't existed during the storm. "I brought your friend's clothes back." She held up a shopping bag. "And I wanted to thank you again. Properly this time." Malik glanced at Caleb, who was pretending not to listen while he organized tools. "You didn't need to drive all the way up here for that." "Actually, I did." Claire stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Can we talk? Privately?" Malik hesitated, then nodded toward the office. "Caleb, can you finish up with the bus?" "Sure thing, boss." The office looked exactly the same as it had 3 nights ago, but sitting across from Malik in daylight felt completely different. He seemed more guarded now, more aware of the space between their worlds. "Coffee?" he offered. "Please." He poured 2 cups from the same pot he'd used before. The coffee was just as good, but it didn't taste like safety this time. It tasted like goodbye. "How's your shoulder?" Malik asked. "Sore, but healing. The doctor said I was lucky, nothing broken." "That's good." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Claire searched for the easy conversation they'd shared during the storm, but it seemed to have evaporated with the rain. "I saw the article," Malik said finally. "I'm sorry about that. Reporters make everything sound scandalous, even when it's innocent." "Didn't look so innocent to your assistant." Claire winced. "Jenny's protective. She worries about bad publicity." "And you? Do you worry about bad publicity?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" Malik leaned back in his chair, studying her face. "I mean, is that why you're here? To make sure I don't talk to any more reporters?" "No!" The word came out sharper than she intended. "I'm here because I wanted to see you again." "Why?" It was such a simple question, but Claire couldn't find a simple answer. "Because you made me feel safe? Because you treated me like a person instead of a bank account? Because for one night, I remembered what it felt like to be real? Because that night meant something to me," she said finally. "You could have kept driving, but you didn't. You took care of me when I was scared and hurt, and you didn't ask for anything in return. I told you, anyone would have done the same thing." "No, they wouldn't have. Most people in my world would have called 911 and kept going. They would have sent flowers to the hospital with their business cards attached." Malik was quiet for a long moment. "What are you saying, Claire?" "I'm saying that I've been thinking about you, about our conversation, about how it felt to drink coffee in a place where people are honest with each other." "And what about your father? The board meetings? The business empire?" Claire's chest tightened. "What about them?" "They're your real life. This—" He gestured around the small office. "This is just a story you'll tell at dinner parties, the time you were rescued by a mechanic." The words stung because part of her worried he might be right. "You don't know anything about my life." "Don't I?" Malik stood up and moved to the window. "I know you drive a car that costs more than most people make in 2 years. I know you wear clothes that have never seen the inside of a discount store. I know you've got an assistant whose job is to manage your image. Those are just things. They're not who I am. Malik turned to face her. Then who are you, Claire Davenport? The question hung in the air between them. Claire opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. How long had it been since anyone asked her that? How long since she'd asked herself? I don't know, she admitted quietly. But I know who I felt like when I was here with you. I felt like someone worth saving. Something shifted in Malik's expression. The careful distance wavered for just a moment. You are worth saving, he said, but not because of who your father is or how much money you have. You're worth saving because you're a person, and every person matters. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. Then why won't you give us a chance? A chance at what? Friendship, coffee, conversation, whatever this is. Malik sat back down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. You want the truth? Claire nodded. 3 years ago, I worked for a construction company in Albany. Good job, decent pay. I was saving money to start this place. He gestured around the office. One day, this rich college kid rear-ended a family on their way to church. Killed the father, put 2 kids in the hospital. Claire's stomach dropped. His daddy was some big-shot businessman. Hired expensive lawyers, spread money around. The kid got 6 months in minimum security and community service. The family got medical bills they couldn't pay. Malik, I was supposed to testify about the accident scene. I'd been working nearby, saw the whole thing. But the night before the trial, my boss called me into his office. Said the company had lost some big contract, and they had to let me go. Just like that. You think the families paid them off? I know they did. Got a call the next day from the boy's lawyer. Said if I kept my mouth shut and didn't testify, there might be another job waiting for me somewhere. Better pay. Claire felt sick. What did you do? I testified anyway, told the truth about what I saw. Not that it mattered in the end. Malik's jaw tightened. But I learned something important that day. What? That money doesn't just buy things. It buys people. It buys silence. It buys whatever version of the truth is most convenient. Claire sat in stunned silence. She thought about her father's board meetings, his careful management of public opinion. How many inconvenient truths had the Davenport money buried over the years? I'm not like that, she said finally. Maybe not, but your world is. And sooner or later, you'll have to choose between me and that world. We both know which one you'll pick. You don't know that. Malik's smile was sad but gentle. Yeah, I do. And it's okay, Claire. It's how things work. Oil and water don't mix, no matter how much you shake the bottle. Before Claire could respond, the office door opened. Caleb stuck his head in, his expression worried. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got company. Through the window, Claire could see a black Lincoln pulling into the parking lot. Her heart sank as she recognized the license plate. My father, she whispered. Edward Davenport stepped out of the Lincoln like he owned the place. Even in casual clothes, khakis and a polo shirt, he looked like money. His sharp eyes swept the garage, taking inventory of everything from the tools to the cars to the man standing beside his daughter. Claire. His voice was calm, but she could hear the steel underneath. I think we need to talk. Malik stood up slowly. Mr. Davenport, your daughter's welcome here any time. Edward's gaze shifted to Malik, and Claire saw something cold flicker in her father's eyes. Mr. Turner, isn't it? I appreciate what you did for Claire the other night, truly. But I think it's best if we don't impose on your hospitality any further. It's no imposition. Nevertheless. Edward's smile was polite and final. Claire, the car is waiting. Claire felt like a child being called in from recess. "Dad, I'm having a conversation. Which can continue at home. We have dinner plans, remember?" She didn't remember any dinner plans, but arguing would only make things worse. Claire stood up, her chest tight with frustration. "Thank you for the coffee," she said to Malik. "Anytime." But they both knew there wouldn't be a next time. Edward Davenport had made that clear without saying a word. As Claire followed her father to the Lincoln, she heard Caleb's voice from inside the garage. "Man, you're in some serious trouble." Malik's response was too quiet to hear, but Claire could guess what he was thinking. Oil and water. Some things just don't mix. The Lincoln's leather seats felt like a cage as they drove away from the garage. Edward didn't speak until they were back on the main highway. "I'm disappointed, Claire." "In what?" "In your judgment. That man is clearly trying to take advantage of the situation." Claire's temper flared. "He saved my life." "For which I'm grateful, but gratitude doesn't require ongoing social visits." "He's a good person, Dad." "I'm sure he is, but good people and suitable people aren't always the same thing." Edward's phone rang, and he answered it with his business voice. Stock prices and merger talks filled the space between them, reminding Claire of the world she belonged to. A world of numbers and strategies and carefully calculated relationships. She pressed her face to the window and watched the mountains shrink in the distance. Somewhere back there, Malik was probably finishing his work on the school bus, washing his hands at the end of an honest day's labor, living a life that was real and solid and true. Claire touched the business card in her pocket, the one she'd left on his workbench 3 days ago. He hadn't called. He wouldn't call. And maybe that was for the best. Oil and water don't mix, no matter how much you shake the bottle. But as the Lincoln carried her back toward her gilded cage, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, it was worth trying anyway. 2 weeks passed in a blur of board meetings and charity galas, but Claire couldn't stop thinking about motor oil under fingernails and the way honest work looked in afternoon sunlight. She tried to fall back into her routine. Morning runs in Central Park, power lunches with clients who spoke in numbers instead of feelings, evening events where everyone smiled with their teeth but not their eyes. But everything felt different now, like she was watching her life from the outside, seeing it the way Malik might see it. All performance and no substance. "You're distracted," Jenny said, sliding a stack of contracts across Claire's desk. "These need your signature before 5. Claire picked up her pen, then set it down again. "Jenny, do you ever think about what your life would look like if you'd made different choices?" "Different how?" "I don't know. Smaller choices, maybe. Quieter ones." Jenny frowned. "Are you feeling okay? You've been acting strange since the accident." The accident, everyone called it that now, like it was something that happened to someone else. But for Claire, it felt more like a beginning than an ending. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Gala tonight. Black tie. Car picks you up at 7. Claire had forgotten about the Children's Hospital fundraiser. Another night of writing checks and making small talk with people who measured their worth in zeros. She signed the contracts without reading them and left the office early. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art because Edward Davenport believed in making statements. The great hall glittered with crystal and candlelight, filled with Manhattan's most influential families. Women in designer gowns air-kissed each other, while men discussed their latest acquisitions. Claire wore a navy blue dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She smiled at the right people, laughed at the right jokes, and wrote a check that would fund a new pediatric wing. "Claire, darling," Margaret Whitfield swept over in a cloud of Chanel perfume. "You look absolutely radiant. That little adventure of yours certainly gave you some color." Adventure. Another sanitized way to describe the night that changed everything. "Thank you, Margaret. You look lovely, too." "I've been meaning to ask. That garage incident, so dramatic. Like something from a movie? Tell me, was he terribly handsome? The mechanic who rescued you?" Claire's chest tightened. "It wasn't like that." "Of course not, dear, but one can't help wondering. There's something so primal about being saved by a strong man, don't you think?" Before Claire could answer, her father appeared at her elbow. "Margaret, how wonderful to see you. Claire, there's someone I'd like you to meet." He guided her away from Margaret's hungry curiosity toward a group of men in expensive suits. Claire recognized the type immediately, her father's latest business prospects. "Gentlemen, my daughter Claire. She handles our urban development projects." Handshakes and business cards, talk of profit margins and zoning permits. Claire smiled and nodded at the right moments, but her mind kept drifting to a small garage where honest work happened and coffee tasted like kindness. "Excuse me," she murmured during a lull in conversation. "I need some air." The museum's steps were quieter, though the city's noise still hummed in the distance. Claire sat down despite her expensive dress, not caring about wrinkles or appearances. Her phone rang. Jenny. "Hey, where are you? Your father's looking for you." "I needed a break. Tell him I'll be right back." "Claire, are you sure you're okay? You've been different since the accident, I know. Everyone keeps saying that." Jenny was quiet for a moment. Maybe different isn't such a bad thing. After hanging up, Claire found herself scrolling through her contacts until she reached the number she'd been thinking about for 2 weeks. Malik's garage. She'd gotten it from directory assistance, but hadn't found the courage to use it. Her finger hovered over the call button. What would she say? That she missed talking to someone who saw her as a person instead of a portfolio? That she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her? Not like an heiress, but like someone worth saving? Before she could talk herself out of it, Claire pressed call. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Turner Auto Repair." "Malik? It's Claire Davenport." Silence stretched across the connection. "Claire, everything all right?" Such a simple question, but it made her throat tight. "I don't know. Maybe. I was wondering, would you like to have dinner sometime?" More silence. "I don't think that's a good idea," he said finally. "Why not?" "You know why. Your father made things pretty clear the other day." Claire's temper flared. "My father doesn't make my decisions." "Doesn't he?" The question hung between them. Claire thought about the gala happening behind her, the business deals being made in her name, the life that had been planned for her since birth. "No," she said firmly. "He doesn't. I'm 29 years old, Malik. I can have dinner with whoever I choose." And what happens when that dinner ends up in the newspapers again? When your board of directors starts asking questions? When your father decides I'm a problem that needs to be solved? You're not a problem. To you, maybe. But to your world, I'm exactly the kind of problem money usually makes disappear. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "You don't have much faith in me, do you?" Malik's voice softened. "This isn't about faith, Claire. It's about reality. Oil and water, remember? Maybe I'm tired of being oil. And maybe I'm tired of getting burned." The line went quiet except for the distant sounds of traffic and city life. Claire closed her eyes, wishing she could reach through the phone and make him understand. "One dinner," she said quietly. That's all I'm asking for. Somewhere quiet where we can just talk. No photographers, no reporters, just two people having a conversation. Claire, please, you saved my life. Don't I get one dinner for that? Malik laughed despite himself. That's not how rescue works. It's how gratitude works. Another long pause. Claire held her breath, waiting. There's a diner about 20 minutes north of the garage, he said finally. O'Neill's place. Nothing fancy. I don't need fancy. Thursday night, 7 o'clock. And Claire? Yeah? This doesn't mean anything. It's just dinner between two people who survived a storm together. I understand. But as Claire hung up the phone, her heart was beating like she'd just won the lottery. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. Claire told Jenny she had a headache and left work early, driving north with the windows down and music turned up loud. She felt like a teenager sneaking out to meet a boy her parents wouldn't approve of. Which, she supposed, was exactly what she was doing. O'Neill's place sat on a quiet stretch of highway, the kind of diner that served coffee in thick white mugs and pie that was made that morning. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few pickup trucks and Malik's Chevy. Claire had changed out of her business suit into jeans and a simple sweater. She'd never owned anything from a discount store, but these were the most casual clothes she had. Malik was already sitting in a corner booth, studying a menu he probably knew by heart. He looked up when she walked in, and something in his expression made her chest flutter. You came? He said. Did you think I wouldn't? Honestly? I wasn't sure. Claire slid into the booth across from him. The vinyl seats were cracked but clean, and the table was set with paper napkins and silverware that didn't match. This place is perfect, she said. An older woman with graying hair and kind eyes approached their table. Her name tag read, Mary O'Neill. What can I get you folks tonight? Just coffee for now, Malik said. Mary, this is Claire. Claire, Mary owns this place. Mary's eyes lit up with recognition. You're the one from the newspaper. The one Malik pulled out of that car? Wreck. Claire felt her cheeks warm. That's me. Well, honey, you picked the right man to rescue you. Malik's been eating here since he got back from the service. Good as gold, this one. Mary, Malik said quietly. Oh, don't you marry me. I'm just telling the truth. She patted Claire's shoulder. You folks take your time looking at the menu. The meatloaf's good tonight. When Mary walked away, Claire grinned at Malik. Good as gold? She's known me since I was 12. Treats everyone like family. That must be nice. What, having someone embarrass you in public? Claire laughed. Having someone who sees the best in you. Malik's expression grew more serious. What about your family? Don't they see the best in you? The question caught her off guard. Claire thought about her father's business meetings, his careful management of her image, his disappointment when she didn't follow the script. My father sees potential, she said finally. Investment opportunities, strategic advantages, I'm not sure he sees me. And your mother? She died when I was 16, cancer. I'm sorry. Claire nodded. She'd gotten used to people's sympathy over the years, but somehow Malik's felt different, more real. What about you? She asked. Family? My parents live in South Carolina. Dad's a pastor, Mom teaches elementary school. They worry about me being up here by myself. Do you miss them? Every day, but this is where I belong now, where I can build something that's mine. Mary returned with coffee and took their dinner orders. Meatloaf for both of them, which made Claire smile. She'd never eaten meatloaf in her life, but tonight seemed like a good time to start. Can I ask you something? Claire said after Mary left again. Shoot. What did you think when you saw my name in the newspaper? When you realized who I was? Mullick was quiet for a moment, stirring sugar into his coffee. Honestly, I thought about turning around and driving home. Why didn't you? Because you were hurt and scared, and that mattered more than your last name. But afterward, when you had time to think about it? Malik met her eyes across the table. Afterward, I wished you were anyone else. The words stung, but Claire appreciated his honesty. Because I'm a Davenport? Because you're from a world where people like me don't matter unless we're useful. I'm not like that. Maybe not, but you're still part of that world, and that world has rules. Mary arrived with their dinner, breaking the tension. The meatloaf was simple and good, served with mashed potatoes and green beans that tasted like they'd been grown in someone's backyard garden. This is delicious, Claire said. Better than whatever fancy restaurant your father took you to last week? Claire paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. How do you know about that? Small town. People talk. Someone saw the Lincoln at the French place downtown. We were celebrating a business deal. It wasn't exactly fun. What? Would be fun for you? Claire thought about it. This. Sitting in a diner with someone who talks to me like I'm a real person. Eating food that tastes like it was made with care instead of calculation. What else? I don't know. I haven't thought about fun in a long time. Malik shook his head. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. What about you? What do you do for fun? Work on cars, read, go fishing when the weather's nice. Sometimes Caleb and I watch the game at Murphy's Bar. That sounds wonderful. It's simple, not much excitement for someone used to galas and board meetings. Claire leaned forward. Can I tell you something? Those galas are torture. Everyone pretending to care about charity while they're really just showing off their jewelry. And board meetings are just grown men arguing about money. Then why do you go? Because it's expected. Because it's my responsibility. Because I don't know how to be anything else. Malik studied her face in the diner's warm light. Maybe you just never had the chance to find out. Before Claire could respond, the bell above the diner door chimed. A group of construction workers came in, laughing and talking about their day. They nodded to Malik as they passed, clearly recognizing him. You know everyone here, Claire observed. Small community. People look out for each other. That must be nice too. It is, but it also means everyone knows your business. As if to prove his point, Mary appeared with coffee refills and a knowing smile. How's the meatloaf, dear? Perfect, Claire said. Good. Malik, your friend Caleb called looking for you. Said something about the Morrison truck being ready early. Malik glanced at his watch. I should probably get back soon. Claire's heart sank. She wasn't ready for this evening to end. Of course. I don't want to keep you from work. It's not that. Malik hesitated. This is harder than I thought it would be. What is? Pretending this is just dinner between two people who survived a storm together? Claire felt her breath catch. What is it then? Malik's eyes were serious and sad. It's two people who want things they can't have? The truth hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Maybe we can, Claire said quietly. Can what? Have what we want, if we're brave enough to try. Malik shook his head. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. For the first time in years, I know exactly what I'm saying. She reached across the table and touched his hand. His skin was warm and rough from work, real in a way that nothing in her polished world ever was. One more dinner, she said. Next week. Give us a chance to figure out what this is. Malik looked down at their joined hands, then back at her face. Whatever he saw there made his resolve waver. "One more dinner," he agreed. "But Claire?" "Yeah? If this goes bad, if your world comes down on both of us, I need you to promise you'll walk away. No, looking back, no regrets. Just walk away." Claire wanted to promise, but the words stuck in her throat. Because she was already starting to realize that walking away from Malik Turner might be the one thing she couldn't do, even if it cost her everything else. The second dinner led to a third, then a fourth. Before Claire knew it, 3 weeks had passed, and she was lying awake at night thinking about calloused hands and genuine laughter. They met at different places each time: a small pizza joint in Hillsdale, a family-owned Italian restaurant in Pine Ridge, even a picnic by the lake where Malik taught her to skip stones. Claire felt like she was discovering a world that had existed right alongside hers, but remained completely hidden. "You're different when you're with him," Jenny observed one Friday afternoon. They were reviewing contracts in Claire's office, but Claire kept checking her phone for texts. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you're not carrying the weight of the world anymore." Claire set down her pen. "Is that bad?" "Honestly, it's the happiest I've seen you since your mother died." The observation hit Claire harder than she expected. She thought about her mother. Elizabeth Davenport had been gentle and kind, the type of woman who remembered her housekeeper's birthday and always tipped generously. She would have liked Malik, Claire realized, would have seen past the differences to the goodness underneath. "Jenny, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Do you think I'm brave?" Jenny looked surprised. "Where's this coming from?" "I've been thinking about choices, about whether I'm brave enough to make the hard ones." "Claire, you run million-dollar deals and stand up to board members twice your age. Of course you're brave." "That's not brave, that's just business. I mean really brave, the kind that might cost you everything." Jenny's expression grew serious. "This is about him, isn't it? The mechanic?" Claire nodded. "His name is Malik, and yes. Are you in love with him?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Claire had been asking herself the same thing for days, afraid of the answer. "I think so," she whispered. "I think I might be." Jenny was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do about it?" Before Claire could answer, her phone rang. Her father's name appeared on the screen. "Claire, I need to see you in my office, now." The line went dead. Claire's stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" Jenny asked. "I think I'm about to find out." Edward Davenport's office occupied an entire corner of the 45th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of Manhattan. He was standing with his back to the door when Claire entered, his hands clasped behind him. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Claire did as she was told, her heart hammering. On her father's desk, she could see a manila folder and what looked like photographs. "Sit down." Edward finally turned to face her. His expression was colder than she'd ever seen it. "Dad, what's this about?" Instead of answering, he opened the folder and spread its contents across the desk. Photographs, dozens of them. Claire and Malik at O'Neill's diner, walking by the lake, laughing together over pizza. The images had clearly been taken with a telephoto lens from a distance. Claire's blood turned to ice. "You had me followed?" "I had you protected. There's a difference." "Protected from what? Having dinner with a friend?" Edward's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Friend? Is that what you call this?" He held up a photo of Claire and Malik holding hands across a restaurant table. "Because from where I sit, it looks like my daughter is having an affair with a mechanic." "It's not an affair. We're just getting to know each other." "For 3 weeks? At secret locations? Claire, do you have any idea how this looks?" Claire stood up, her temper flaring. I don't care how it looks. Well, you should, because while you've been playing house with your rescue fantasy, I've been cleaning up the mess. What mess? Edward pulled out a newspaper clipping. This ran in the Albany Times yesterday. Davenport heiress's secret romance with local mechanic. They're calling it a modern Cinderella story, but with the genders reversed. Claire felt sick. How did they find out? Someone's been feeding information to the press. Photos, dates, locations. Your little romance has become a media circus. I don't believe this. Edward sat down heavily in his chair. It gets worse. The board met this morning. Emergency session. They're concerned about your judgment, Claire. About your ability to represent the family business. Because I'm dating someone they don't approve of? Because you're endangering our reputation for a man you barely know. Edward's voice rose. Do you have any idea what kind of background check we ran on him? Claire's heart stopped. What kind of background check? Edward opened another file. Malik Turner, age 33, honorable discharge from the Army. No criminal record, clean credit. But here's the interesting part. He was fired from his last job for insubordination. That's not true. He refused to follow company policy regarding a workplace incident. Got himself terminated rather than keep quiet about it. Claire thought about the story Malik had told her about the construction company, about testifying against the rich boy who'd killed a family. Her father was making it sound like defiance instead of integrity. He was standing up for what was right, she said. He was putting his personal feelings ahead of his professional obligations, just like you're doing now. Claire stared at her father, seeing him clearly for maybe the first time. You don't care about what's right or wrong. You only care about what's profitable. I care about protecting this family, about protecting you, even when you're too foolish to protect yourself. I don't need protection from Malik. He's a good man. Maybe he is, but good men and suitable men aren't the same thing, Claire. And suitable men don't come with media scandals attached. Edward stood up and walked to the window, his back to her again. I'm going to make this simple. End it. Tonight. Cut all contact with him, and we'll weather this storm together. And if I don't, then you'll leave me no choice but to take more decisive action. Claire's blood ran cold. What kind of action? Edward turned around, his face grave. Turner Auto Repair rents that garage from Morrison Properties. Morrison Properties has been trying to develop that land for months. One phone call from me, and their lease won't be renewed. You can't do that. I can, and I will. Your mechanic will lose his business, his livelihood, everything he's worked for. All because you couldn't let go of a rescue fantasy. Claire felt the room spin around her. Dad, please. The choice is yours, Claire. End this relationship, or watch me destroy the man you claim to care about. Silence filled the office like poison gas. Claire stared at her father, seeing the cold calculation in his eyes. This wasn't anger or disappointment. This was business. How long do I have? She asked quietly. 24 hours. After that, I make the call. Claire walked to the door on unsteady legs. Her hand was on the knob when her father spoke again. I'm doing this because I love you, Claire. Someday you'll understand. She didn't trust herself to respond. Instead, she fled the office and took the elevator down to the parking garage, her mind reeling. 24 hours. Claire sat in her BMW for a long time, trying to think of a way out. But every scenario led to the same conclusion. If she stayed with Malik, her father would destroy him. And if she walked away, she pulled out her phone and scrolled to Malik's number. Her finger hovered over the call button. What could she say? That her father was threatening to ruin his life unless she stopped seeing him? That loving her came with a price Malik shouldn't have to pay? Instead of calling, she started driving north. She needed to see him one more time before. Before what? Before she broke both their hearts to save his business? The autumn sunset painted the mountains gold and red as Claire pulled into the parking lot of Turner Auto Repair. Malik was closing up for the day, wiping his hands on a shop rag as he walked toward his truck. He smiled when he saw her, and the warmth in his expression made her chest ache. "Hey, beautiful. What brings you up here so late?" Beautiful. He called her beautiful like he meant it, not like it was expected. "I needed to see you," she said. Something in her voice made his smile fade. "What's wrong?" Claire opened her mouth to tell him about the photographs, the threats, the impossible choice her father had given her. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she stepped forward and kissed him. Malik hesitated for just a moment before pulling her closer, his arms wrapping around her like a shield against the world. The kiss tasted like goodbye, though he didn't know it yet. When they broke apart, Claire rested her forehead against his chest, breathing in the scent of motor oil and honest work. "Come away with me," she whispered. "What?" Claire looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Tonight, we could drive to Vermont or Maine or anywhere. Just disappear for a while." Malik studied her face with growing concern. "Claire, what happened?" "Nothing. Everything. She struggled to find words that wouldn't reveal the trap closing around them. "I just want to be with you without the whole world watching." "We can do that right here. Come on, let's go inside. You can tell me what's really going on." But Claire knew that once they went inside, once she told him the truth, it would all be over. Her father would win, and Malik would lose everything he'd worked for. "I have to go," she said suddenly, stepping back. "Go? Claire, wait." Malik reached for her hand. "Talk to me. Whatever this is, we can figure it out together." Claire looked down at their joined hands, his rough from work, hers soft from privilege. Oil and water, just like he'd said. "Some things can't be figured out," she said quietly. "Some things just are. Don't do this. Don't shut me out." Claire pulled her hand free, memorizing the hurt in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Malik. For all of it." She was in her car and driving away before he could stop her, tears blurring her vision as his figure disappeared in the rearview mirror. Her phone rang almost immediately. Malik's name on the screen. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again. Finally, Claire turned off the phone and drove through the darkness toward the city, each mile taking her further from the man she loved and closer to the life that had been chosen for her. Behind her, autumn leaves danced in the wind like confetti at a funeral. The next morning dawned gray and cold. Claire sat in her apartment, still wearing yesterday's clothes, staring at her silent phone. She'd turned it back on an hour ago and found 17 missed calls from Malik, along with a dozen text messages that grew increasingly desperate. "Claire, please call me back. Whatever happened yesterday, we can work through it. Don't do this to us. I love you." The last message stopped her breath. He loved her, and she loved him too, which made what she had to do infinitely harder. At exactly 9 o'clock, her doorbell rang. Jenny stood in the hallway holding coffee and pastries, her expression gentle but determined. "Your father called me," she said without preamble. "He told me what happened." Claire let her in, grateful for the company but dreading the conversation. "I have to end it," Claire said without preamble. "If I don't, Dad will destroy his business." "Maybe there's another way?" "Like what?" Jenny sat down on the couch beside her. "You could fight back. Use your trust fund to help Malik relocate his business. Tell your father you'll go public with the whole story. The threats, the manipulation, all of it." Claire had thought of that. And then what? Spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when my father will strike again? Malik doesn't deserve that kind of life. What if he wants to make that choice for himself? He can't make an informed choice if he doesn't know the consequences. And if I tell him the truth, he'll try to fight my father himself. He'll lose everything. Jenny was quiet for a moment. So you're going to sacrifice your happiness to protect him? I'm going to set him free to find happiness with someone whose last name won't destroy his life. At noon, Claire finally called Malik back. He answered on the first ring. Claire, thank God. Where are you? Are you okay? His voice was rough with worry and sleepless hours. I'm fine. I'm at home. I'm coming over. No, Malik, we need to talk, but not in person. Silence, then quietly. This isn't going to be a conversation I want to have, is it? Claire closed her eyes. I can't see you anymore. Why? Because it's not working. Because we're from different worlds, and that matters more than I thought it would. That's not true. Yesterday morning, you were talking about going away together. Yesterday morning, I was living in a fantasy. Today, I'm facing reality. What reality? That your father disapproves? Claire, we can handle that together. No, we can't, and I won't ask you to try. Malik's voice grew harder. So that's it? You're just walking away? I'm doing what's best for both of us. Don't you think I should get a say in what's best for me? Claire bit her lip to keep from crying. Sometimes loving someone means making the hard choice for them. And sometimes it means fighting for them, even when it's difficult. I can't fight anymore, Malik. I'm tired. The line went quiet except for the sound of their breathing. Is there anything I can say to change your mind? He asked finally. Claire thought about his gentle hands and honest eyes, about coffee that tasted like safety and conversations that felt real, about the way he made her feel like someone worth saving. No, she whispered. There isn't. Then I guess this is goodbye. Claire wanted to say something beautiful and meaningful, something that would help him understand, but all she could manage was, take care of yourself, Malik. The line went dead. Claire sat in her empty apartment and cried for the love she'd found and lost, for the man who would never understand why she'd walked away, and for the girl she used to be before the world taught her that sometimes love wasn't enough. Outside, the city hummed with its usual indifferent energy, full of people making choices and living with consequences. Claire pulled a blanket around herself and tried to figure out how to rebuild a life that would never feel quite right again. But somewhere in her heart, she held on to the memory of a storm and a rescue and 3 weeks when everything felt possible. Even if it was over, even if it could never be, at least she knew what real love felt like. And maybe, sometimes, that had to be enough. 6 months later, Claire stood in the same spot where her car had crashed, now marked only by new guardrail and fresh asphalt. The autumn leaves were budding green again, and the mountain air smelled like renewal. She'd driven up here on impulse, needing to see where it all began, or ended, depending on how you looked at it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jenny. Board meeting in an hour. Where are you? Claire typed back, on my way, but she didn't move. Instead, she found herself walking down the hill toward Turner Auto Repair, though she wasn't sure why. The garage looked exactly the same, except for one thing. A for lease sign hung in the front window. Claire's heart stopped. She pulled into the empty parking lot and got out of her car, staring at the sign in disbelief. Can I help you? She turned to see an older man in a suit, probably a real estate agent. What happened to the auto shop? She asked. Owner's lease wasn't renewed, Moved his operation up to Vermont, I heard. Shame, really. He did good work. Vermont? Malik had moved to Vermont. Do you know where in Vermont? The man shrugged. Sorry, miss, that's all I know. Claire stood in the empty parking lot for a long time after he left, staring at the place where she'd fallen in love and learned to break her own heart. Her father had won, just like he always did. But looking at the empty garage, Claire wondered for the first time if winning and being right were the same thing. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a number she'd memorized but never called. After 6 months of silence, she finally found the courage to type a message. I heard you moved to Vermont. I hope you're happy there. I hope you're building something beautiful and true. I'm sorry for how things ended. You deserved better. See. She hit send before she could lose her nerve, then drove back to the city and the life that was waiting for her. Her phone chimed 20 minutes later, with a response that made her pull over on the side of the highway. I am happy, and I forgive you. I hope someday you forgive yourself. M. Claire sat in her car on the shoulder of the road and cried, for forgiveness she didn't deserve, for love she'd been too afraid to fight for, and for the possibility that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to choose courage over comfort. The road stretched ahead toward Manhattan and the board meeting that would decide her future. But for the first time in months, Claire found herself wondering if there might be other roads, different choices, braver possibilities. She thought about her mother, who had chosen love over convenience when she married Edward Davenport, about integrity and honesty and the courage to stand up for what mattered, about a man in Vermont who was probably building something beautiful and true, just like she'd hoped. Claire took a deep breath, put her car in gear, and drove toward whatever came next, carrying the memory of 3 weeks when everything felt possible, and the hope that maybe, with enough courage, anything still could be. The mountains watched her go, keeping their secrets about storms and rescues, and the mysterious alchemy that sometimes happens when two hearts collide against all odds. And sometimes, if you listened carefully to the wind through the trees, you could hear the echo of second chances calling across the valleys, waiting for someone brave enough to answer. 1 year later, the letter arrived on a Tuesday in March, forwarded 3 times before it reached Claire's new address in Portland, Maine. Her name was written in careful handwriting she recognized immediately. Inside was a wedding invitation. Malik Turner and Sarah Chen request your presence. Claire stared at the elegant cardstock, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. Malik was getting married to someone named Sarah Chen, who was probably wonderful and deserving and everything Claire had failed to be. She should be happy for him. She was happy for him. But she was also heartbroken all over again. The invitation included a handwritten note. Claire, I know this might be strange, but you were such an important part of my journey. Sarah knows about you and everything that happened. She says anyone who helped me learn to love deserves to be there when I promise to love forever. I understand if you can't come, but the invitation stands. Malik Claire read the note 3 times, then walked to her apartment window. Portland's harbor stretched out below, filled with fishing boats and possibilities. She'd moved here 8 months ago, finally finding the courage to leave her father's company and start her own nonprofit working with veterans. It was smaller work than what she'd done before. Quieter work, but it felt real in a way that board meetings never had. Her phone rang. Jenny, who'd followed her to Maine and now served as her assistant and closest friend. Did you see it? Jenny asked. You mean the invitation? How did you? He sent me one too, along with a very sweet note thanking me for being a good friend to you. Claire sat down heavily on her couch. He's getting married, Jen. Yes, he is. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? Congratulate him and wish him well. You could go to the wedding? That would be incredibly awkward. Or incredibly brave. Claire was quiet for a moment. What if seeing him again ruins everything? What if I've built this whole new life on the foundation of getting over him, and one look at him in a wedding tux brings it all crashing down? Then you'll pick up the pieces and keep going. But Claire, what if you don't go and spend the rest of your life wondering? After Jenny hung up, Claire sat with the invitation in her hands, thinking about courage and closure and the difference between moving on and moving forward. She thought about her mother, who would have told her that love, even lost love, deserved to be honored. She thought about Malik's note and the woman named Sarah, who sounded kind enough to include a stranger in her wedding day. And she thought about the girl who'd been rescued from a storm and learned, for a brief moment, what it felt like to be truly seen. That girl deserved better than hiding from hard things. Claire picked up her pen and checked yes on the RSVP card. The wedding took place in a small church in Stowe, Vermont, surrounded by mountains that reminded Claire of where everything began. She sat in the back, wearing a simple blue dress and trying to calm her racing heart. When Malik appeared at the altar, Claire's breath caught. He looked older, more settled, with the kind of peace that came from finding your place in the world. Beside him stood a man she recognized as Caleb, grinning widely in his role as best man. Then Sarah appeared at the back of the church, and Claire understood immediately why Malik had fallen in love with her. Sarah Chen was beautiful, but more than that, she radiated kindness. Her smile was genuine and warm, and the way she looked at Malik as she walked down the aisle made Claire's eyes fill with tears. This was how love was supposed to look. Uncomplicated. Unafraid. Right. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. Malik and Sarah wrote their own vows, promising to support each other's dreams and weather whatever storms came their way. When they kissed, the whole church erupted in applause. Claire slipped out during the recessional, not wanting to intrude on family photographs and receiving lines. She was almost to her car when someone called her name. Claire! She turned to see Malik jogging toward her, his boutonniere slightly askew. You came? He said, slightly breathless. I almost didn't. I'm glad you did. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. He looked happy, Claire realized. Truly, completely happy. Congratulations, she said. Sarah seems wonderful. She is. She knows about us, about what happened. Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. What did you tell her? That you taught me how to recognize love when I found it. That leaving you was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it led me to where I needed to be. Claire's throat felt tight. I'm glad it led you somewhere good. What about you? Are you somewhere good? Claire thought about her work with veterans, her small apartment overlooking the harbor, the quiet life she'd built for herself. I think so. I'm trying to be. Malik smiled, and for a moment she saw the man who'd rescued her from a storm. That's all any of us can do. Sarah appeared beside them, still glowing from the ceremony. You must be Claire. I'm so glad you could make it. Claire shook her hand, marveling at her graciousness. Thank you for including me. It was a beautiful ceremony. Malik told me what you meant to each other. I think it's important to honor the people who help us become who we're meant to be. Before Claire could respond, Caleb appeared with a camera. Come on, you two. Time for pictures. As Malik was pulled away by wedding obligations, he caught Claire's hand. Thank you, he said quietly, for coming, for everything, for loving me enough to let me go. Claire squeezed his hand once, then released it. Be happy, Malik. That's all I ever wanted. She drove away as the reception was beginning, her heart full of complicated emotions. Sadness for what was lost, joy for what was found, and something that might have been peace. On the highway back to Maine, Claire's phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Sarah. Thank you for today. I know it couldn't have been easy. Malik is lucky to have been loved by someone like you. I hope you find that kind of love again." As Claire pulled over to wipe away tears, but they weren't entirely sad anymore. 6 months later, she would meet David, a fellow veteran who ran a small bookstore near the harbor. He would have gentle hands and honest eyes, and he would love her without reservation or complication. But that was still in the future. For now, Claire drove through the Vermont mountains toward whatever came next, carrying with her the memory of a storm that changed everything, and the knowledge that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Behind her, music and laughter drifted from a small church where two people who deserved happiness had found it with each other, proving that even broken stories can have beautiful endings if you're brave enough to keep writing them. The mountains kept their secrets about storms and rescues and the mysterious ways the heart learns to heal. But if you listened carefully to the wind through the trees, you could hear the echo of new beginnings calling across the valleys, reminding anyone who would listen that courage, like love, comes in many forms. And sometimes, the most courageous thing of all is choosing to believe that the best chapters of your story are still waiting to be written. End.